want you to think about for just a moment, to eat the good of the land, he's talking to his people. So that means that there's good stuff already in the land, but other people are eating it. But if you do what he says, he'll let you eat the good stuff that they eat. So please know, when God said, I reign on the just as well as the unjust have a lot of good things. And God even said in his word, he said, I'll transfer the wealth of the wicked to the just. He said, but if you're not willing and obedient, I'll let them keep it. You see, there's something about being born again that says you cannot stay in that narrow mindset that you had when you were unsaved. Because what it will do, it'll keep you from eating the good of the land. And people will say all the time, when I was unsaved, I lived better than this. Yeah, you did. Because there's good things in the land for unsaved people. But all of that good stuff and more will come to you. They'll work and develop it and build it, and then God will make them transfer it to you. That's the secret of being a born-again believer. But that's not how we do it. We look at what they do and then want to go act like them to get what they get. If you do that, you're going to lose, because God said you can't belong to me and play the games of the world, because I don't bless that way. I let them have the things they have, but I'm trying to give you a higher level, a higher standard, and I need you to understand my ways, because I'm trying to pull them from there over here. Don't let them pull you from here back over there. Now, you see, that's how we have twisted our concepts on so many levels. And God is trying to get us to come back, because what's over there is supposed to be given to us over here. You're supposed to enjoy those blessings, those riches, because they're supposed to. He told Israel, he said, Israel, I'm not going to put you in a place where you have to do all this hard work. I'm going to cause the pagans around you to bring you stuff. I'm going to cause them to give you. They're going to work the land and they're going to give you the blessings. This stuff is supposed to come to you. So it's a little bit different. So we can't do what they do, but they can do what we do. Do you realize that people who are not unsaved, who are not saved, can actually give, pay tithes, and get the same blessings you get? And they do it. There are a lot of unsaved folk that take some of your principles and work them and get blessed. Do it all the time. They do all kinds of other crazy things, but they'll give God the tithe. And that stuff keeps working. You're like, how in the world do they do that? Well, they follow certain laws and principles that's in the scriptures that are good for all humanity, but they're supposed to do some supernatural things for those who are born again, but they just follow them. And they do work, because they were given to man, but we were supposed to take them to a higher level and then show other men how to operate in them. That's what we're supposed to do. Now, let me show you a problem that we run into. Look at verse 2 in that chapter. And it said, hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth. For the Lord has spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. Now, when I looked at that, I said to God, I found in a few places you've said, hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth. He actually said in Deuteronomy 4:26, you don't have to turn there. I just want to show you a couple of things here. Deuteronomy 4 and verse 26. And God is telling Israel about some things he wants them to do, how he wants them to behave. And he said, now, let me read verse 25 to give you a little bit of context. When thou shalt beget children and children's children, and you shall have remained long in the land, and shall corrupt yourselves, and make a graven image or a likeness of anything, and shall do evil in the sight of the Lord thy God, to provoke him to anger. Then he said, I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, that ye shall soon perish from off the land whereupon ye go over Jordan to possess it, and ye shall not prolong your days upon it, but shall utterly be destroyed. And the Lord shall scatter you among all nations, and ye shall be left few in number among the heathen, whither the Lord shall lead you. Now, he's saying to them, this heaven and earth thing, there is something about this, because every place I found it, he would use heaven and earth to declare something extremely powerful was about to happen to these people because of the things that they did that broke his law. And he only used heaven and earth when he said, I'm going to tear you down. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put you up under this, put you up under that because of your misbehaving. And what I come to understand, he told Israel in several places, he said, if you do what I say, you shall eat the good of the land. So when I started looking at this thing, I said, Lord, heaven and earth. Do you realize that heaven and earth go together? You cannot have heaven without earth, nor earth without heaven. Amen. They go together. They work together. And when he said, I call heaven and earth, and in many places he said, I call heaven and earth as a witness against them. And he said, if you be willing and obedient, you'll eat the good of the land. Then I realized he's calling the heavens, where the spiritual forces are, even where the clouds and the water is, to rain down. And he's talking to the earth, where everything is sowed. He said, if you want to eat the good of the land, you're going to have a blessing from heaven and earth. You know, lightning would not flash if there was not molten iron in the earth. There has to be a positive and a negative. So heaven being the positive, earth being the negative, if we want to eat the good of the land, we have to have the Spirit working with us first. Now this is what happens. The willingness says, as soon as you say, well, Lord, I'm willing to do that, you know what happens? Spiritual forces get up and get in gear, and they start to move with you. If you are not willing, spiritual forces, they just stand at attention. Nothing can happen. In other words, when you're willing, the rain will start to come. When you're willing, God will send you that first little bit of success when you become willing. You see, sometimes we think we have to have the whole thing completed. God doesn't work like that. He said, if you will start, I will cause the heavens to send enough rain to water that crop for then. In other words, if you say, Lord, I want to get beyond this or get beyond that, if you will start where you can start, he said, I'll cause heaven to work with you. Now, when heaven works with you, Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 2, I believe it said, he that regards the wind will not sow. In other words, wind represents spirit. If you allow your mind and spiritual forces around you, or all the crazy stuff going on around you, to infect your mind, you won't sow into the earth. And you got to sow into the earth, and heaven has to rain on it for it to grow. Paul planted, Apollos watered, but God gives the increase. The increase comes from heaven. So now when God said, I call heaven and earth against you today, what he's doing, he's telling spiritual forces and earthly forces not to work with you. That's what he said of Israel. And why did he tell them not to work with them? He said, I have nourished them up, and they have rebelled against me. He said, verse 3, the ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib, but Israel doth not know. My people don't even consider what I said. And he said, I will call heaven and earth. In other words, no spiritual forces are going to work with you because you're not willing to at least turn. Earth is not going to yield any fruit because you have not been obedient and listened intelligently. You see, intelligence means I'm going to sow my soil. I'm going to sow my seed in the soil. I'm going to prepare the soil. Unintelligent says, I just throw it out there anywhere. Wherever it goes, that's where it goes. That is unintelligent. You can't do that. You're not going to get a harvest. That stuff may blow down the road in somebody else's field, and they may get it. So to be intelligent, you've got to know this is my field. I've got to get the nematodes, the grass, and all this stuff out of it. I've got to put rows in here, and I got to plant my crop in some kind of order. That's intelligently. That's the obedience. And if you don't operate in that obedience, you are not going to reap a harvest. God said, I'm going to tell heaven, don't work with them. Earth, don't work with them. Because they're, first of all, not acquiescing to what is the right thing to do. And secondly, they are not operating in a spirit of obedience. Meaning they're hearing intelligently. Now, many times we hear angrily. You hear something and you know it's something that's wrong with you and you get angry about it. That means that you weren't even willing. So God says, heaven, earth, don't work for them. So you still get some things done, but not on the level God told them they were supposed to have. He said, you know what I want you to be? The head and not the tail. So you still getting some things done, but you're getting it done way down here. You should be making $80 an hour, but you're making $8 an hour. Because he told heaven and earth, don't work with them. But see, we think because we've got a few things done, oh, God is mighty good. He is good because he lets favor, he lets grace and mercy come on us, even though that's the low level of what he wants to give us. Grace and mercy is basically for hard-headed people. That's why you're not gone already. Grace and mercy. When David was talking about the 23rd Psalm, he was in trouble. And then he said, you know, but God's grace and mercy has got me. And he said, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Because he realized that he hadn't done right. And he said, God had to make me lay down in green pastures. He said, because my enemies had me so upset, I wasn't going to lay down nowhere. I was sitting up late watching all night. What they going to do next? I can't even sleep. I can't figure out what to do. I'm stressed. I'm frustrated. And God says, go over there and lay down. And in a good place, boy, lay down. And David was like, what? Don't you see my enemies all around me and they're trying to overcome my soul? God says, go to sleep. And when David come to his understanding and he said, you know what God did? He prepared a table for me in the presence of my enemies. And David understood, God is so merciful, let my enemies keep coming, because when my enemies come, I eat good. He started to understand something because of God's grace and mercy. And he said, surely they're going to follow me out. Why did he say, surely they will follow me? Because David knew what kind of man he was, and he was subject to mess up something tomorrow. He said, surely goodness and mercy going to follow me. Because I know I'm subject, I may see another Bathsheba. And I may be in trouble again. So surely goodness and mercy. But God said, if my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, then will I hear from heaven. I will forgive their sin and heal their land. How did their land get sick? Because he called heaven and earth as a witness against them, and heaven couldn't provide and earth couldn't receive.